The summer sun blazed down on the small mechanic workshop that stood quietly at the edge of the city. Its rusted roof and faded sign didn't look like much, but for as long as people could remember, Nasir Auto Works had been the only place where truth, grit, and real knowledge about engines still lived. The owner, Ustad Nasir, had been a humble yet brilliant mechanic for over 25 years. Widowed early, he raised his only child, Alicia, within the walls of that very garage. She had grown up to the sounds of wrenches clicking, oil spilling, engines roaring, and customers thanking her father for miracles he worked on their broken vehicles. Alicia wasn't just watching, she was learning. From the time she could walk, she knew how to hand over the right tools. By the time she was 11, she could strip a bike engine and reassemble it faster than the apprentices her father hired. She didn't speak much, but her hands spoke a language of their own, fluid, sharp, mechanical, precise. Her dreams weren't of movie stars or fashion shows. They were of powerful engines, clean carburetors, perfectly timed gears, and torque readings. But being a girl in a male-dominated trade came with its own burdens. Customers would often look past her, asking for her father even after he retired due to health issues. But Alicia never demanded recognition. She just worked, quietly, consistently, and passionately. Life was tough, money tighter. But they survived. That is, until one morning, a roar echoed through the dusty lane. Heads turned, jaws dropped. A blood-red Ferrari LaFerrari rolled up in front of the garage like a beast among cattle. The door lifted, and out stepped a man whose name was whispered across every business newspaper in the country. Bilal Rahman, billionaire industrialist, owner of Rahman Motors, one of the biggest automobile manufacturing giants in South Asia. With a perfectly tailored suit, gold sunglasses, and a sharp look in his eyes, he didn't belong in a place like Nasir Auto Works. His guards stood like statues, and even the neighbors peeked from their windows to catch a glimpse. Bilal didn't come for a repair, he came for a test. Rumor had it, he was searching for a new head of engineering for an elite division in his company, a project that involved custom modifications for high-end vehicles for international clients. His company had already handpicked a dozen candidates, with foreign degrees and elite training. But someone in his team had heard a whisper about a girl, a mechanic's daughter, who could feel an engine like a musician hears a note. A girl with no degree, no foreign exposure, and no spotlight, but talent unmatched. He stepped into the workshop and saw her, wearing a plain blue suit, grease on her face, her hair tied back in a bun, holding a wrench and tightening the bolts of a Civic. She didn't even look up until he said, "So you're the one they talk about?" She stood, wiped her hands, and gave a soft nod. "I just fix what's broken, sir." He smirked. "Well then, let's see if you can fix this." The Ferrari's engine had been behaving oddly, he explained. 5 mechanics tried, including one flown in from Dubai. No one could figure out the irregular surge and strange vibration at high speed. "You get 30 minutes, he said coldly. "Touch the engine, diagnose it and fix it, if you can. If not, I walk away." She didn't blink. "Okay." People gathered around as she walked to the car. She circled it slowly, listening, observing, feeling the air, the heat, the tension. She sat in the driver's seat and listened to the ignition, closed her eyes, and revved the engine gently. Then she got out, opened the hood, and stared into the jungle of machinery that looked like chaos to the untrained eye but poetry to her. She didn't grab tools immediately. She just stood still, listening. Bilal raised his eyebrow. "What are you doing?" "Letting it talk," she said quietly. He laughed. "Is that how you fix things? With feelings?" But within 10 minutes she was under the hood, her hands moving like water. She removed and resecured the intake manifold, cleaned the mass airflow sensor with her own concoction of cleaner, recalibrated the ECU settings via a tablet she pulled from her bench, and even adjusted the idle control valve. People watched in awe. No panic, no hesitation. Just calculated, deliberate movements. She closed the hood. "Start it now." He did. The engine purred, perfectly. No surge, no tremble. Smooth like silk, powerful like a lion. Bilal stepped out, speechless. He hadn't seen anything like it. "How?" he muttered. "You had a rare electrical feedback loop caused by miscommunication between the new ECU and the original system. Most people were fixing the mechanical side. It was software confusion. But that also overheated your airflow sensors and affected pressure readings," she explained simply. It wasn't just her knowledge. It was the clarity, the calm confidence. He looked at her again. This time, really looked. That day, Bilal Rehman didn't just offer her a job. He offered her a blank check. "Name your salary, your position, and your location," he said. But she shook her head. "I don't want to leave this place yet. This garage built me." Instead, they struck a deal. She would consult on his projects part-time while continuing her work at her father's garage. And thus began a journey that would redefine who Alicia was to the world. In the months that followed, Alicia became the face of genius that didn't wear a lab coat or come from ivy-covered buildings. She trained engineers older than her. She designed and customized luxury cars for celebrities, politicians, and collectors. She developed a unique engine cooling system that reduced overheating in hypercars running in desert climates. Bilal, once skeptical, now called her our secret weapon. But her fame brought attention and jealousy. At a high-profile auto expo in Dubai, one of the rival engineers, Zain, mocked her publicly. "Fixing a Ferrari is not the same as designing one," he sneered. "I don't care how many greasy bolts she's touched. She doesn't belong here." The room went quiet. Cameras captured every word. Alicia didn't shout. She smiled. Later that evening, in a private demonstration, she presented her new design, a compact, multi-fuel hybrid engine model with dual torque optimization, something no one had seen. Even Bilal didn't know she was working on it. It wasn't flashy. It was revolutionary. And she explained it without a single slide, just her hands, a few sketches, and a passion that lit up the room. When she finished, even Zain clapped, reluctantly. The next morning, she was featured in 3 international auto magazines. The title read, "From Grease to Genius, How a Mechanic's Daughter is Changing the Future of Cars." But Alicia never let the fame change her. Every Friday, she returned to her father's garage, helped fix local bikes and cars, and even trained village girls who wanted to learn mechanics but had no support. She started a small fund for technical education for underprivileged youth. Her philosophy was simple. "I wasn't given a stage. I built my own. Now I'll build one for others." 2 years passed and Alicia became a symbol. She was invited to speak at universities, awarded by the president, and offered roles in big companies across the world. But she always returned to the garage, the same place where it all began. One day, a little girl, barefoot, shy, holding a broken toy car, came to the garage. "Can you fix it?" she asked. Alicia sat down, smiled, and said, "Let's fix it together." And just like that, the circle began again. Moral of the story: never let your roots limit your dreams. You don't need big degrees or fancy titles to prove your worth. If you have passion, skill, and the courage to stay true to yourself, even the most powerful will stand speechless in your presence. And once you rise, lift others with you, because true greatness is not just about rising, but about rising with grace. She had been working alone again, the hum of soldering irons and blinking LEDs her only companions in an empty lab at midnight. On a worn wooden desk lay her creation, a small, spider-like robot with 8 delicate legs and a heart of circuit, boards and wires. Its curious sensors glowed softly. She pressed her sweaty forehead to the cool desk, exhausted but hopeful. That's when the door swung open, bright light spilling in, and the CEO walked in. He stood frozen, stared at her creation, then burst out laughing. The mocking echoed around her. At that moment, every dream she'd ever had seemed to shatter. Her name was Aisha Tariq, a Pakistani-American engineer in robotic AI at Zenith Robotics, an ambitious tech startup chasing big breakthroughs. Aisha wasn't polished like the other engineers. She was intense, they said. Weird. She worked best in building tiny biomechanical creatures she called microbots, hoping one day they could explore dangerous places humans never could. She believed in them like a parent believes in a child, but nobody else did. When Ethan Cole, the CEO, finally regained his composure, he shook his head and chuckled. "This is cute," he said condescendingly. "But if you want to succeed, here, Aisha, you need to build real robots, real products, not toys." He turned off the light and left her alone in the shadows again, the circuits betraying no emotion. Aisha stared at her microbot until the lab door closed. She felt the world collapse. She dropped to the floor, surrounded by loose wires and plastic legs, and whispered, "It's not a toy." But with nobody to hear her, it felt like she'd lost her voice. She gathered the parts, slipped them into a box, and left the lab. All she could think was, maybe he's right. Everyone else believed in bigger, faster, more brutal robots for military or industrial use. Microbots felt like art. But in a company chasing investment rounds and boardroom presentations, art was a liability. The next morning, Aisha trudged into work wearing not cause and effect hoodie, but her home clothes. She avoided the break room, used a side entrance, and didn't speak to anyone. The whispers began right away. "She's late. Did the CEO call her out?" She pretended she didn't hear them. But inside, a spark refused to die. That evening, she walked into the lab determined. She took the box of parts, unpacked them, and began again. She worked with trembling hands, tearing up when thin circuit traces broke, then smiling with triumph when they healed. The microbot came alive under her fingers once more. She programmed it to crawl in a line, pause, wave a sensor leg, then scuttle to safety. It was simple, but to her, it was a miracle. Aisha's nights became sacred. After dark, no one came by. The lab was hers. Little by little, she improved her design, added cameras, better motors, AI learning chips. The microbots began working together, forming chains, passing messages, cooperating to climb over obstacles. She taught them, in code and circuit, how to communicate. Meanwhile, at Zenith, bigger projects were churning. A hulking industrial robot that could weld cars, a cargo delivery drone, and AI software that predicted market trends. But CEO Ethan sensed something missing. The press releases felt sterile. The excitement felt flat. Zenith Robotics was strong, but not surprising. They built expected things. With stiff competition in the market, they needed a breakthrough, something unexpected. One afternoon, Ethan was reviewing metrics in the executive suite. At the ping of an email, he paused. Subject: Midnight Microbots, Dashboard Stats. Intrigued, he clicked. Data streamed in. Mysterious spikes in camera feeds, tiny robot test footage, algorithm logs tagged by Aisha. He realized she hadn't abandoned her midnight project. She had doubled the bots, proven cooperation between 5 units in obstacle courses. He forwarded it to the board. Interesting. What is this? He called Aisha into his office. Heart pounding, she entered. The room was cold, sterile. Ethan sat, steepled fingers. He clicked on a screen. Clips played of the microbots. In action, climbing steps, linking legs, sharing sensor data. He looked at her quiet. Explain, she inhaled sharply. She told him the vision, swarms of microbots exploring collapsed buildings after earthquakes, crawling through nuclear reactors to inspect damage. delivering medicine in small doses to remote areas. She described their intelligence, tiny scale, communication, resilience in numbers. She spoke with trembling passion, but only when she began to describe the applications did she feel seen. Ethan listened, softly, in silence, for a long time. Then he leaned back. "You're asking to turn Zenith into a mosquito lab," he said. But his voice wasn't mocking. It was curious. "Tell me, what do you need?" The board heard about it. Investors were skeptical at first. A robot swarm, no bigger than a walnut? Where's the ROI? But then Zenith released a demo video, showing infiltration into pipes, relaying thermal data from a burned-out furnace. They showed bots delivering mini first aid during fire drills. The world took notice. Press coverage emerged. Zenith's microbot swarms could save lives. Ethan faced pressure. Should Zenith pivot? Should they stick to predictable, profitable products, or chase this wild microbot dream? In tense boardroom meetings, numbers were thrown. Logic clashed with vision. Some board members wanted assurance, ROI forecasts, endless focus groups. Aisha came to one meeting late, unseen. She analyzed toxic gas filtration algorithms. She spoke silently, eyes bloodshot. When Ethan stood and said, "I propose 40% of R&D shift to her project," murmurs erupted. Aisha didn't ask for approval. She just extended her hands. She showed simulation data, storm-ravaged city blocks, microbots mapping underground voids inaccessible to drones. She showed thermal scans of survivors trapped in rubble. She argued for direct humanitarian focus. She asked for pilot funding low compared to Zenith's revenue, sufficient to build 1,000 units and test in the real world. The CEO stood up, palms pressed to table. "I've seen her work. I've seen the potential. And I trust her." Silence filled the room. The vote passed by one voice. His Aisha vanished into the lab. Weeks turned to months. She oversaw a team of engineers, some who once mocked her, others who never knew anything else. They built, rebuilt, adapted. They tested microbots in broken pipelines of an abandoned factory. They calibrated sensors to detect trace amounts of water. They coaxed tiny units to memorize spatial maps and share data with larger drones. They iterated at midnight again, but now in teams. Her leadership style was quiet, supportive, encouraging, human. She stayed until everyone was gone, then worked later than the rest. She gave encouraging words at 3 a.m. coffee runs. She posted hand-drawn diagrams on sticky notes to show complexity without intimidation. As they prepared for field trials after a devastating hurricane in a Caribbean nation, the world watched. Aisha stood by Ethan in a makeshift command center. She calibrated swarm patterns as 2,000 bots were dispatched through broken walls and flooded roads. The live feed shook. Bots found people trapped in flood-drowned attics. One family was rescued. Because of their sonar signal relay, panic turned to stunned awe on reporters' desks. "Zenith's microbots saved lives today," the headline screamed. On live national news, Ethan spoke. He thanked the engineers. Then he turned to Aisha. Standing with her team, she blinked in the glare of TV cameras. He said, "Without her vision, we would have built another big machine and missed this chance to innovate." She not only saved lives, she redefined what Zenith is capable of. Today, I'm announcing her as our incoming Chief Technology Officer, and I'm asking her to lead the next phase of this company. The lab erupted with applause. Investors cheered. Reporters lined up. Aisha's heart pounded. She remembered Midnight Lab. She remembered the mocking laugh. And she remembered her father's words. "They don't see yet. One day they will." Now, her father stood at the back of the command center, zooming in on screen, his face gray but proud. In the weeks that followed, Aisha accepted the CTO role. She assembled a new innovation wing, more microbot projects funded, more engineers hired, and more applications deployed. from pipeline inspection on Mars-like desert plains to surgical bots performing precise tasks in remote clinics. Zenith's stock doubled, but more importantly, their purpose renewed. Aisha remained humble but confident. She never forgot what it felt like to be laughed at midnight. She instituted midnight lab hours, where any engineer could bring any project, no matter how odd. She greeted them at the door, offered coffee, mentorship, and a place to be themselves. The culture shifted. Top-down control became bottom-up invention. Profit followed innovation, not the other way around. The first anniversary of the Hurricane Field Trial, Aisha stood in the same lab where she'd first fought for belief. She walked past rows of microbot prototypes, past sketches of world-changing ideas. She placed a small microbot on the desk and whispered, "Thank you for reminding me." The microbot glowed and blinked back. The startup that dismissed her late-night idea had risen to global impact because it learned to listen. Aisha had risen and made sure no idea was too small, no engineer too quiet, and no midnight project too weird. As cameras circled outside, she stepped out onto the stage for Zenith's annual demo night. Massive spotlights glittered off polished steel robots behind her, but she walked to the front alone. She held a microbot in her hand. She cleared her throat. Thousands of employees, investors, media watched. She paused, then said, "This little thing was mocked, laughed at, called."
Jason never hated his mother. He just forgot her. That's what he told himself every time he looked at the unread message on his phone. Every missed call. Every birthday he didn't return. Every photo she sent of her garden, her new cat, or the biscuits she baked just for him. He loved her, sure, but he had meetings, clients, a deadline, a date, a condo to pay for, a gym subscription, a wedding to plan, a honeymoon to cancel, a divorce to finalize. He had a life. Amelia, his mother, didn't. She had a house on the edge of the town she never left. A garden that was now overgrown. A clock that ticked louder every evening. And a chair that sat empty across from hers. For years she waited. Jason was raised by Amelia after his father left. He never remembered the man, just vague memories of loud voices, a slammed door, and his mother clutching him tightly on the kitchen floor as she whispered, "We're going to be okay." And they were, sort of. Amelia worked 3 jobs at times. Cleaned houses, waited tables, folded clothes at the laundromat. But Jason always had clean shoes, warm food, and books for school. She went without everything just to make sure he didn't. Was her world. He grew up bright and curious. She taught him to dream beyond the town, to chase something bigger, and he did. He got into college on scholarship, then moved to New York for an internship, then never looked back. At first he called every day. Then every week. Then on her birthday. Then only when she called first. Eventually, she stopped calling. Not because she stopped caring, but because she didn't want to be a burden. Because every time he answered, he sounded like he was already in a rush to hang up. Still, she waited. Years passed. Jason built a life or something like it. He worked in advertising, slept 3 hours a night, made 6 figures, bought gadgets, had relationships that didn't last more than a few months, drank too much coffee and stared at too many screens. He never visited home. There was always a reason. Plane tickets were expensive. Work was busy. The weather was bad. The holidays were too chaotic. Maybe next month. Next month never came. One day, Jason was in a strategy meeting when his phone rang. Unknown number. He ignored it. It rang again, then a text popped up. Urgent. Your mother has been admitted to County General. Stroke. Critical condition. Please call back immediately. Jason's heart stopped. He booked the next flight. Delayed. Missed connection. slept at an airport bench. By the time he got to the hospital, she was in IQ, tubes, beeping machines. A pale face he barely recognized. She was unconscious. The nurse looked at him with tired eyes and said, "We tried calling you sooner." Jason sat beside her, held her hand. It felt like paper. Fragile, dry, cold out, he whispered, "Mom." "It's Jason." Her eyelids fluttered, a faint smile, and one whisper, "You came." Then silence. The flatline sounded before he could even respond. Jason sat there frozen. The nurse turned off the monitor. A doctor said something about time of death, forms to sign, release procedures. He didn't hear any of it. His mind went blank, not because of the shock of death, but the guilt of time wasted. All those years, all those moments he didn't show up. All those things she wanted to say, but didn't. All the love she gave and how little he returned. They let him collect her things, a small handbag, a photo of him when he was 10, a hand-knitted scarf, and a letter. The letter was addressed to Jason, "If I don't get the chance to say goodbye." His fingers trembled as he opened it. Greater than "My dear Jason, if you're reading this, it means I didn't get to hug you one last time. That's okay. I had a lot of time to remember our hugs. I know you've been busy. I never wanted to make you feel guilty or tied down. I just wanted to hear your voice once in a while. You were always such a bright, beautiful soul. Even when things got hard, you smiled like the sun. I miss that smile. I know life took you far away, but you were always close to me. Every single day, I made you tea in my thoughts. Sat across from you in memory. If you feel regret now, let it go. Just promise me. Love someone as much as I loved you, and never forget where you came from. All my love, Mom." Jason sobbed until there were no more tears. The funeral was simple. No relatives, no big crowd. Just Jason, a few neighbors, and the pastor. She had always been quiet. She left quietly, too. Afterwards, Jason went back to the house. Her little kitchen still had a tea mug on the counter. Her rocking chair still faced the window. He found a shelf full of things he'd sent her years ago, old postcards, college brochures, a blurry photo from his office Christmas party. She had kept them all. In the attic, he found dozens of unsent letters, all addressed to him. All unfinished. She had written him every month for years. Never mailed them. Just wrote, folded, and kept. He sat there reading page after page of love, memories, questions, stories, birthday wishes, New Year blessings, and prayers. One letter read, "Jason, do you remember when you got sick in 3rd grade and I stayed up all night making soup and holding your hand? You called me your hero. I don't need to be your hero anymore. I just want to be someone you still think about." Jason didn't go back to New York. He took a leave, then resigned. Friends messaged, clients called. He ignored them all. He spent a month at his mother's home, fixing it, cleaning the garden, repairing the chair she always sat in. He talked to her aloud every day. At breakfast. While watering the roses, while folding laundry. Then one morning, while going through her cupboard, he found an old journal. Inside it were 2 pages titled, "Things I Still Dream Of." Some entries read, "Jason sitting across from me at dinner, baking lemon cake with him again, holding his child one day, seeing him become a kind man, hearing him say, 'Thank you, Mom.'" Jason stared at that last line for an hour. He whispered, "Thank you, Mom." Months later, Jason returned to the city, but not to live. Just to collect things, sell his condo, and say goodbye to a life that never fulfilled him. He moved back to his mother's town. He used his savings to open a center, home for elderly mothers with no one. He named it Hope of Mothers.
The day after the custody ruling, the house felt different. Not just because it was legally official, but because the energy had shifted. It was lighter, happier, as if the walls themselves were breathing easier. Lily and Lila now called him Dad, without hesitation. Evan told his friends at school, "I have 2 sisters now. It's like we leveled up." Michael laughed when he heard that, and he silently agreed. But while love had filled their home, money still hadn't. Michael's double shifts were wearing him thin. He often slept just 3 or 4 hours a night. His body ached constantly. But he pushed through, always showing up with a smile, never letting the kids see how tired he was until one day, he collapsed in the garage at work. He woke up in the hospital, 4 in his arm, nurse by his side. Dehydration. Exhaustion, she said. "You need rest, Mr. Carter, serious rest. You've been burning your candle from both ends and lighting it with a blowtorch." Michael chuckled weakly. "Yeah, well, life doesn't really give time off when you're a single dad of 3, the nurse softened. "Then it's time to let others help you." Michael stayed overnight. The next morning, Rebecca came to visit. She brought a thermos of hot soup, a notebook, and an envelope. "I've been thinking," she said. "The girls changed my life." "Your story, what you've done, it needs to be told," Michael frowned. "Told how?" "I want to write it. Your whole story, from the bus stop to now. And I want to pitch it to a publisher." He blinked. "Who would want to read about a tired mechanic raising kids he found on a bench?" She smiled. "Everyone." 3 months later, the book came out, titled The Bus Stop Miracle, A Father's Love Found in the Rain. It became a surprise bestseller. People from all over the country wrote letters, sent donations, offered to help. A local news station did a segment, then a national morning show called Michael and the kids were invited to tell their story live. The host asked Lila what she remembered most about that day. She said, "He told us, come with me," like it was the safest thing in the world. The community rallied around them. A local nonprofit offered Michael a full-time job with better hours and health benefits, teaching basic mechanical skills to teens. It paid more than his old job and allowed him to be home in the evenings. An anonymous donor paid the down payment for a small but beautiful home in a quiet neighborhood. The kids each got their own room. Evan painted his with planets. Lily picked yellow for hers. Layla chose butterflies. Michael cried the day they moved in, the day the adoption papers were finalized. The judge asked one last question. "Do you, Michael Carter, willingly take these children as your daughters, to love, protect, and raise as your own?" He didn't hesitate. "With all my heart, forever." Years passed, and the family grew together. Evan became a big brother in every way. Lily joined choir. Lila started writing short poems about dreams and stars. Michael learned how to braid hair properly and cried the first time he saw Lily sing on a real stage. Rebecca's book became a movie. The actor who played Michael asked to meet the real family. When he did, he cried and said, "You changed the world, man." Michael smiled. "I just didn't walk away." One rainy evening years later, Michael drove by the old bus stop on Lincoln Avenue. He parked the car and stepped out. It looked the same. Rusted roof, chipped bench, puddles in the sidewalk cracks. He remembered the girls shivering in the cold, holding that tiny suitcase, waiting for a mother who was never coming back. He remembered whispering those 3 words that changed everything. "Come with me." And he remembered how the next day a miracle had happened, not because the world changed, but because he chose to. He stood there for a moment longer, rain on his shoulders, heart full. Then he turned, walked back to his car, and went home to his family. To love, to life, to the miracle.